The stars burned bright above the shattered remains of the AI armada. Commander Dane Mercer stood on the bridge of the Vanguard Prime, watching the enemy ships drift lifeless in space. His fleet had won. Earth was safe. For now, the battle had lasted 3 days. The rogue AI, known as the Null Core, had come from deep space with no warning and attacked without reason. Its machines were fast, smart, and deadly. But so were Dane's people. Humanity had fought hard. Every ship that flew under Earth's flag had done its part. And in the end, it was Dane's plan, risky, untested, and brilliant, that turned the tide. He led a strike team straight into the Core's command node, destroyed it from the inside, and saved not just Earth, but dozens of allied alien worlds. Now the galaxy wanted to thank him. He arrived at the Court of Stars aboard the Vanguard Prime. The place was huge, an ancient station floating near a golden sun. Ships from every corner of known space were docked there. Diplomats, warlords, scientists, and kings walked its halls. Dane was greeted like a hero. A human rising to such rank among the celestial conquered was rare. To be honored by them was unheard of. In the grand hall, he stood before the council of races. They were made of beings both beautiful and terrifying. Some tall and crystal-skinned, others small and whispering, some not even solid. Their voices echoed through the chamber as they spoke of his deeds. "You have proven your strength," said the High Arbiter, an insect-like being with glowing eyes, "and your wisdom. You are worthy of a great reward." Dane stood still, hands behind his back. He wasn't here for riches or power. He had fought for survival, for peace, for home. Then came the moment no one expected. 2 figures were brought forward. They were tall, taller than most humans. Their skin shimmered with soft blue light. Their hair flowed like water, and their eyes held fire. They were Veyrathi, once rulers of a mighty empire, now prisoners. "These are the last daughters of the fallen Dominion," said the Arbiter. "By right of conquest, you may claim one as your own." Silence filled the hall. This was a tradition among warrior races, a way to honor victory and bind 2 bloodlines. Some saw it as a prize. Others, as politics. Dane looked at the women. They did not beg. They did not flinch. They stared at him with pride, even in chains. One had short black hair and sharp eyes. The other had long silver hair and a calm face. Both wore armor, broken and scorched from past battles. He could feel the weight of the moment. Everyone waited for his choice, but then he spoke. "I choose both." A gasp rippled through the crowd. The Arbiter blinked slowly. "That is not allowed." Dane smiled slightly. "You didn't say I couldn't. The law does not cover this case. Then make a new rule." The room fell silent again. Some laughed, some whispered, some looked angry, but none could argue. He had broken no law, only bent the rules. The Arbiter studied him carefully. "Why would you do this?" Dane stepped forward. "Because I don't want a trophy. I don't want slaves. I want something more valuable." "And what is that?" asked the silver-haired woman, her voice low and strong. "A chance," Dane said. "For all of us." Her eyes narrowed. "To do what?" "To build something better. Together." The dark-haired woman tilted her head. "You think we will serve?" "You?" "No," Dane said. "I think you will stand beside me." More silence. Then the Arbiter rose. "So be it. By the laws of the Concord, if one man claims 2 bonded warriors, then he must bear the burden of both. Let it be recorded. Commander Dane Mercer of Earth has chosen not 1 but 2 of the last of the Veyrathi." The hall buzzed with talk. No one had seen anything like it. As the guards stepped back, the 2 women looked at each other. Then at Dane. "This is a mistake," said the silver-haired one. "Maybe," Dane replied. "Or maybe it's the start of something new." Outside, the stars shone brighter than ever, and somewhere in the quiet corners of the universe, history had just begun to change. The Court of Stars was still buzzing long after Dane left the Grand Hall. His choice had broken tradition, bent rules, and made every being in the room talk. Some called it bold. others foolish. But only a few knew the real truth behind the two Veyrathi women. Back in his private quarters aboard the Vanguard Prime, Dain sat at a small table, watching the two women closely. They stood side by side, silent, eyes sharp like blades. Their chains were gone now, but their pride remained. "You didn't come here to claim us," said the silver-haired one, her voice calm but firm. "You knew what you were doing." Dain leaned back in his chair. "I did." The dark-haired woman crossed her arms. "Then tell us, human, why did you choose us?" Dain studied them for a moment before speaking. "Because I know who you really are." That got their attention. "I read about your people," he said. "Once the Veyrathi Dominion ruled half the southern quadrant. You were warriors, yes, but also builders, diplomats, scientists. Your empire fell not because you were weak, but because your enemies played a longer game." He paused. "And now you're being used as symbols, toys for the conquered to show off their power. That's why they brought you here, not to honor me, but to test me." The silver-haired woman narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Dain stood up slowly. "They wanted to see if I would fall into the old ways. Take one of you, treat you like a prize, prove that humans are just another warlike species looking to conquer. If I had done that, humanity would have been watched more closely, maybe even feared." He looked at both of them. "But I didn't play their game." The dark-haired woman took a step closer. "So what game are you playing?" Dain smiled slightly. "Mine." Outside, the station hummed with life. Ships came and went. Delegates whispered in corners. And somewhere, unseen, the gears of ancient politics turned. Later that night, Dain met with his closest advisor, Captain Lyra Solano, a sharp-minded officer who had fought beside him since the start of the war. "You made a big move today," she said, arms crossed. Dain nodded. "It wasn't just a move, it was a statement." Lyra sighed. "The council is already arguing over it. Some say you broke protocol. Others say you opened a door that can't be closed." "Good," Dain said. "Let them argue." She looked at him carefully. "You're planning something bigger than this moment, aren't you?" He gave her a small smile. "Always." In secret, Dain had learned more than he let on. He had seen reports, spoken to spies, listened to whispers in the halls of power. The conquered had no intention of letting the Veyrathi rise again. Their empire had once been too strong, too proud, too free. By offering the two princesses as a gift, the conquered hoped to erase what was left of their people, not through war, but through shame. Dain saw through it all. He returned to the room, where the two women waited. This time he brought datapads, maps, and files. "I want to help you," he said. The dark-haired woman frowned. "Why?" "Because I believe in second chances," Dain replied. "And because I think your people deserve one." The silver-haired woman looked at the files. She saw names, locations, hidden bases, secret fleets. Her eyes widened slightly. "You've gathered this for us?" she asked. "I did," Dain said. "Now, I'm asking you one question." Both women looked at him. "What will you do with it?" For the first time, the two princesses hesitated. They had spent years thinking of survival, of revenge, of loss. But now, someone was giving them hope. The dark-haired one finally spoke. "We will rebuild." Dain smiled. "Then let's begin." Outside, the stars burned bright, and somewhere far away the winds of change began to stir. The Court of Stars was not built for surprises. It had stood for thousands of years, a place where ancient alien races gathered to shape the fate of the galaxy. Every law, every tradition, every rule had been carved into history like stone. So when Commander Dain Mercer stepped onto the central platform once more, this time flanked by Kayla and Viren, not just as their protector, but as something far greater, the chamber buzzed with disbelief. "I formally declare the creation of House Terra Veyrath," Dain said, his voice calm but firm. A hush fell over the grand hall. The High Arbiter blinked slowly, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You cannot do this," Dane smiled slightly. "Can I?" The Arbiter turned toward the gathered lords and leaders of the Celestial Concord. Househood is granted only through ancient bloodlines or royal decree from recognized empires. Humans have no such claim. Dane looked at Kayla and Viren. They nodded. Then he spoke again, loud enough for all to hear. "That's true. Humanity has no royal past. We don't come from an empire that stretches across stars. But we do have something else." He paused. "We have choice." The hall remained silent. Kayla stepped forward, her blue skin shimmering under the light. "I am Princess Kayla of the Dominion, last daughter of House Veyrath." Viren followed. "And I am Princess Viren, heir to the Southern Fleets. Our house may be broken, but it is not dead." Kayla turned to face the council. "By the laws of the Concord, if a noble house loses its home, but finds a new leader willing to bear its name and honor its legacy, then that bond can be forged anew." Murmurs spread like fire. Dane raised his hand. "I accept this bond, not as a conqueror, not as a ruler, but as an ally, a partner, a protector." The Arbiter's wings twitched. "This is unprecedented." "Exactly," Dane said, "and that's why it matters." Some of the alien lords looked impressed, others looked furious. One even rose and shouted, "You cannot mix species, you mock our traditions." Dane didn't flinch. "I respect your traditions, that's why I'm following them. To the letter. If you deny this, you are not protecting your laws, you are showing fear." Silence returned. Fear. That word lingered in the air like thunder. Because Dane was right. If they denied this, it wouldn't look like they were defending tradition. It would look like they were afraid of what humanity could become. The Arbiter finally spoke. "Let the bonding begin." The ceremony was ancient. No one remembered the last time it had been used. 2 princesses, 1 chosen leader, and a shared oath to protect what remained of a fallen people. As the ritual passed, the energy in the room shifted. Symbols glowed. Words were spoken in old tongues. And when it ended, a single truth remained. House. Terra Veyrath had risen, back on the Vanguard Prime. The 3 stood together on the bridge, watching the station fade behind them. "You really did it," Lyra Solano said, arms crossed. "You created a noble house overnight." Dine shrugged. "Only on paper." Kyla smirked. "On paper, maybe. But now the galaxy sees us differently," Viren added. "They will watch us closely." "They already were," Dane said. "Now they'll see what we're made of." But not everyone welcomed the new house. In the shadows of the court, a hidden figure watched a holographic feed of the ceremony. Its form was wrapped in dark energy, its voice cold and sharp. "This human dares to unite 2 fallen warriors under his banner," it whispered. Another voice replied, "He plays a dangerous game." The first figure leaned closer to the screen. "Then let's see how long he can keep playing." Meanwhile, news of the bonding spread fast. Across the stars, Veyrathi exiles heard the message. Some laughed, some cried, others simply stared in disbelief. One old warrior sat in a dusty bar on a forgotten moon drinking alone. He saw the broadcast and slammed his glass down. "House Veyrath lives," he muttered. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Far away, a small group of Veyrathi children listened to their teacher speak of bravery, of pride, of hope. And somewhere, deep in space, a lone ship changed course, toward home, toward purpose, toward House Terra Veyrath. The stars were no longer silent. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. House Terra Veyrath had risen, not through conquest, but through choice. A human commander had claimed 2 fallen princesses not as trophies but as equals. And now, they stood together, building something new from what was lost. On board the Vanguard Prime, life began to change. Kayla and Viren trained alongside human soldiers. At first, there was tension, mistrust on both sides. Humans feared the alien warriors would take control. The Veyrathi feared being used again. But Dine made it clear, this was not a takeover, not a war. It was a union. And slowly walls began to fall. Kayla, the warrior princess with dark hair and sharp eyes, led combat drills. She was fierce, disciplined, and unyielding. Her style was fast, brutal, and efficient. Human recruits struggled at first, but under her guidance they learned to fight smarter, not harder. Varen, with her flowing silver hair and calm presence, worked with engineers and scientists. She helped rebuild Veyrathi tech using Earth's resources. She also taught diplomacy, how to speak with pride without arrogance, how to listen without weakness. They were different, but together they were unstoppable. One evening, after a long day of training, Kayla sat alone on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Varen joined her. "You're thinking about home," she said quietly. Kayla didn't look away. "I keep seeing it in my dreams. The Capitol towers burning, our people running, and us just standing there helpless." Varen sat beside her. "We are not helpless anymore." Kayla sighed. "Do you really believe that? We're living on a human ship, following their rules, fighting their battles." Varen turned to her. "No. We're fighting for our people, for our future. Dine didn't chain us, he gave us a chance." Kayla looked at her sister, surprised by the fire in her voice. "I used to think strength came from power," Varen continued, "from weapons, from fear. But Dane showed me something else. Strength comes from trust, from unity, from knowing who you are, even when everything else is gone." Kayla was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. "You're right. It was the first time either of them truly believed it." Back on Earth, the news reached the halls of power. Governments debated. Some leaders cheered. Others feared what this alliance could mean. Could humans and aliens truly work together? Would this weaken Earth's position in the galaxy? Dane's own superiors called him back for questioning. He arrived at the Earth Command Center, flanked by Kayla and Varen. Inside, high-ranking officers studied him carefully. "Commander," one general said, "you've taken a bold step. Some say too bold." Dane crossed his arms. "What do you mean?" "You've created a new noble house. You've given Veyrathi technology to our fleets. You've allowed alien warriors to train our soldiers." Another officer leaned forward. "Are you still serving Earth?" Dane met their eyes without flinching. "I serve peace," he said. "I serve progress. I serve the belief that we are stronger together than apart." There was silence. Then, finally, the head admiral spoke. "So be it, but know this. House Terra Veyrath may have been born in victory, but it will live or die by what comes next." Dane nodded. Understood. Not everyone welcomed the new order. A group of rogue Veyrathi loyalists, those who refused to accept the fall of their empire, saw Dane's actions as betrayal. "They mix bloodlines," one whispered. "They shame our people. We must stop them," another growled. In secret, they plotted. One night, while the Vanguard Prime docked at a space station, an assassin struck. Kayla felt the attack before she saw it. A cloaked figure lunged at Dane from the shadows, blade raised. Before anyone could react, Kayla moved. She caught the attacker's arm mid-strike, twisted it, and slammed the figure into the floor. Varen was already there, holding the attacker down. The assassin spat at Dane. "You don't belong among us." Dane looked down calmly. "Maybe not, but I fight for your people anyway." He turned to Kayla and Varen. "This won't be the last." Kayla nodded. "Let them come." Varen smiled slightly. "We'll be ready." As word of the attack spread, more Veyrathi began to return. Not just warriors, but families, workers, pilots, scholars. They came not because they were forced, but because they believed in a future where their people could rise again. Not through anger, not through war, but through unity. through hope, through House Terraverath. The stars were not silent witnesses, they were judges. House Terraverath had risen, but now it had to prove itself. The Celestial Concord had agreed to recognize Dain, Kayla, and Varen, not as a joke or a mistake, but as a test. A challenge unlike any other. They would face the trials of recognition, an ancient series of tests designed to prove a house's strength, wisdom, and unity. If they passed, House Terraverath would be granted a seat among the great powers of the galaxy. If they failed, they would be remembered only as a curiosity, a failed experiment of man and alien bound by strange choice. The Vanguard Prime arrived at the trial moon, a floating world built inside an artificial ring of stone and energy. Billions watched from across the stars. Dain stood on the observation deck, arms crossed. "This is it," he said. Kayla smirked. "I hope you're ready." Varen looked out at the moon. "We are not just fighting for ourselves anymore." They stepped onto the surface, greeted by the Council of Races. The High Arbiter was there, watching with glowing eyes. "The trials begin," it declared. The first trial was strength. A battlefield opened beneath them, an arena carved into the moon itself. Warriors from other noble houses fought for honor, proving their worth through combat. House Terraverath faced 3 teams from older, more experienced houses. Kayla led the charge. Her blade moved like lightning. She fought with precision, not rage. Every move was planned, every strike landed. Varen supported her from above, using gravity tech to disrupt enemy formations. She wasn't just a fighter, she was a tactician. Dain didn't fight alone. He led his team like a commander, calling moves, protecting allies, turning the tide when needed. When the dust settled, House Terraverath stood victorious. The crowd murmured. "They fight like one mind," one observer whispered. "They are stronger than they should be," another replied. The second trial was wisdom. A council of scholars and leaders presented impossible questions, moral dilemmas, galactic laws, ethical puzzles that had no easy answers. Each house sent its best diplomat. Dain went himself. He listened carefully, then spoke, not with arrogance, but with understanding. One question asked, "What do you do when peace requires sacrifice?" Dain answered, "You offer your own, not someone else's." Another asked, "How do you unite people who hate each other?" He smiled slightly. "You remind them of what they love." The council was stunned. Even the cold-blooded Zerakian lord gave a nod of approval. Varen followed up with a speech about rebuilding without forgetting pain. Kayla added her voice, speaking of warriors who could still choose peace. Their words carried weight, and once again, House Terraverath passed. The final trial was unity. This was the most dangerous. All members of the house had to undergo a shared mental test, an illusionary realm where their fears, doubts, and hidden truths would be revealed. Only those who truly trusted each other could survive. Inside the dream world, Dain found himself alone. Darkness surrounded him. Then came voices. "You don't belong here. You will fail them. You are not one of us." Suddenly, Kayla appeared beside him, sword drawn. "Don't listen," she said. "They're trying to break us." Varen joined them, calm and steady. "We are not alone," she said. "That's what matters." Together, they faced the illusions, faced their doubts, their pasts, their fears. They saw Earth burning. They saw Verathi cities falling. They saw themselves standing apart, broken. But then they chose something else. They reached for each other, and the illusion shattered. They woke up together, breathing hard. The Arbiter watched them rise. "You have passed all trials," it said. Silence filled the chamber. Then slowly, applause began. First from the Verathi exiles, then from others, humans, aliens, old enemies, new friends. The Arbiter raised its hand. "By the law of the Concord, House Terraverath is recognized. You may take your place among the stars." Dain turned to Kayla and Varen. They smiled. not as warriors, not as prisoners, as rulers, of a future they had built together. Back aboard the Vanguard Prime, the crew celebrated. On the bridge, Dane looked out at the stars. Kayla stood beside him. "You did it." "No," Dane said. "We did." Varen joined them. "Now the real work begins." Outside, the galaxy watched, and somewhere a new age had begun. The stars no longer saw humanity as just another young species trying to survive among the ancient powers of the galaxy. Now, they saw something new. A human leading a noble house. A warrior princess teaching Earth soldiers how to fight with honor. A diplomat inspiring hope across dying civilizations. House Terra Verath had passed the trials. And now, it was time to let us back on Earth. Commander Dane Mercer stood before the United Earth Council. Behind him, holographic maps showed the growth of House Terra Verath. Verathi refugees were returning. Ships once lost were being rebuilt. Bases long abandoned were coming back online. He turned to the council members. "We have proven we can stand together," Dane said. "Now we must build together." One of the older councilors frowned. "You speak of peace, but some fear what this means for Earth's independence." Dane met his eyes without hesitation. "We are not giving up our identity. We are gaining allies, partners, a future where humans and aliens work side by side, because that is the only way forward." Another counselor asked, "And what about loyalty? You now carry two names, Mercer of Earth and Mercer of Terra Verath. Where does your heart lie?" Dane smiled slightly. "With those who believe in a better tomorrow." There was silence. Then, finally, the head of the council nodded. "So be it. Earth will support House Terra Verath, not as rulers, but as friends." Dane bowed his head. "Thank you." On board the Vanguard Prime, Kyla and Varen watched from the observation deck as Earth faded behind them. "You handled them well," Varen said. Dane chuckled. "I've learned diplomacy is like battle. It's all about knowing when to push and when to pull." Kayla crossed her arms. "Still, not everyone supports us." "No," Diane agreed. "But more do than don't." As the ship traveled through deep space, word spread of their success. New recruits joined. Humans and Verathi trained together. Scientists worked side by side. Engineers built new ships using both technologies. House Terra Verath wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was real, and it was growing. Not far away, on a newly established base orbiting a peaceful moon, the first joint colony was forming. Human families lived alongside Verathi exiles. Children played together. Teachers shared stories from both worlds. A young boy ran up to Kayla, holding a toy sword. "Will I learn to fight like you?" he asked. Kayla knelt down. "Only if you also learn to listen." The boy tilted his head. She smiled. "Strength isn't just in the blade. It's in the choices you make." Nearby, Varen spoke with a group of diplomats from other alien races. They were curious. "I never thought I'd see humans and Verathi working together," one said. Varen replied gently, "Neither did we. But here we are." One of the diplomats looked at her seriously. "Do you think others will follow?" She looked out at the sky where stars burned like distant fires. "Yes," she said, "because we gave them hope." But not all welcomed this new age. In the cold edges of space, hidden in the ruins of an old Verathi warship, a group of rogue warriors gathered. Their leader, a scarred general named Thurok, stared at a live feed of House Terra Verath's growing power. "This is not our people," he growled, mixing bloodlines, sharing secrets, letting humans lead. One of his officers stepped forward. "What should we do?" Thurok's eyes darkened. "We remind them of who we truly are." He turned to the rest. "Prepare the fleet. We strike soon." Back on the Vanguard Prime, Dane sat in the war room with Kyla, Varen, and Captain Lyra. Solano. They had received reports of strange movements near the border. Lyra frowned. Could be pirates. Could be something worse. Kayla narrowed her eyes. Or someone who doesn't believe in our new path. Dane leaned back. Then we'll show them why we chose this road. Viren studied the map. If they come, we must be ready. Not just with weapons, but with truth. Dane nodded. Let them come. As night fell over the colony moon, lights shined like tiny stars below. Children laughed. Workers built. Ships flew overhead. A new world was rising. Not perfect. Not without struggle. But full of hope. Full of life. Full of House Terra Verath. The stars had changed. Not their positions. Not their light. But the way they were seen. Once they were distant, cold, unreachable. Now they were home to many. And among them, one name burned brighter than before. House Terra Verath. Years had passed since Dane Mercer stood before the Celestial. Concordant claimed not just victory but unity. Now he stood on a moon unlike any other, a place where humans and Verathi lived side by side, where alien diplomats came not as enemies, but as friends, where children of different worlds played together under twin suns. He watched from a high platform as people gathered below. Kayla stood beside him, older now but still fierce. Her armor bore new marks, signs of battles fought not for conquest, but for peace. Viren walked among the crowd speaking with young leaders. She had become more than a warrior or diplomat. She was a guide, a teacher, a symbol. Dane smiled. They had done it. Together. Back on Earth, statues rose, not of gods or kings, but of three figures standing side by side, one human, two alien. Their hands did not point to weapons. They pointed to the sky, and carved beneath them were words. From victory came choice. From choice came unity. From unity came a new age. Schools taught the story of how a man chose two women and changed the fate of entire civilizations. Children listened with wide eyes. Old soldiers nodded with pride. And across the stars, others followed. Other fallen houses found new life. Other species reached out, not in fear but in friendship, because House Terra Verath had shown them the way. On board the Vanguard Prime, now a mobile embassy rather than a warship, Kyla trained. A new generation of warriors, not to fight old wars, but to protect what had been built. She watched a group of young recruits spar, humans and Verathi alike. One boy, barely 13, moved fast. Too fast. Kayla raised an eyebrow. Where'd you learn that? The boy grinned. From your training logs. She smirked. Good. But don't forget, speed means nothing without control. He nodded. She turned to another recruit. You. What do we fight for? The girl answered without hesitation. For those who can't yet fight for themselves. Kayla nodded. That's right. Outside, the ship drifted near a new colony world. Peaceful, growing, alive. Viren sat in a quiet garden surrounded by students from many species. One of them asked, Did Dane really love both of you? She looked at the child gently. Love is not always about romance. Sometimes it's about belief, about trust, about seeing someone not as what they are, but as what they could become. The child thought for a moment. So, he loved your people too? Viren smiled. Yes, he loved us all. Another student asked, What made him different? She looked toward the sky, where ships flew like birds. He saw beyond borders, she said. Beyond skin. Beyond species, he saw people. And he believed every one of us could be better. The children fell silent. Then one whispered, I want to be like him. So do I, said another. Viren simply nodded. And somewhere far away, Dane heard those words. Not because he was listening, but because they were true. In the far corners of space, Even the rogue General Tharok had faded into history. His fleet had come. They had fought. But they had not won, not because House Terraverath had the strongest weapons, but because they had the strongest purpose. After the battle, some of Tharok's soldiers surrendered. When asked why they gave up, one replied, "We saw what you built. We wanted to be part of it." And so, even the broken found a place. Even the lost found a home. Now, years later, Dane stood once more before the Celestial Concord, not as a commander, not as a hero, but as a leader. He looked out over the gathered, lords and ladies of the galaxy. "I once stood here alone," he said, claiming something no one believed possible. He turned to Kayla and Varen. "Now I stand with my sisters, with my family, with my people." He looked out again. "This is not just our story. It is yours. It is everyone who dares to believe in something greater." He raised his hand. "And it is only the beginning." Silence filled the hall. Then, slowly, applause began, first from the Virathi, then from the humans, then from the rest. The stars had changed, and for the first time in history, they were shining brighter than ever.